And we continue to underwhelm.
Continuously underwhelming.
Yeah.
That's okay. Well, we'll just sit here and wait, Philip, and we'll see. I think Kenny should figure this out in a couple of seconds, I'd imagine. Maybe some other colors are gonna come along. Oh.
I would hope so. I know they're trying.
Yeah.
They're 2 a.m.
Oh. I think that was Tom. And I think that might be something that we have to consider is that probably about half of the guys that have backed this are in Europe. So it's much late for those guys. So maybe we should try to do this on Monday. Like maybe have a reattempt on Monday when the shop's closed and we can get in here at 4 o'clock our time. Makes it like 8 or 9 theirs.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Somebody's gonna figure it out. Otherwise we just sit here, right?
Exactly. That's why I brought out the toys. Now, technical difficulties.
Oh, I've got technical.
Be like, oops, we did it again.
You gotta reach up there. Oops. All right, down.
Oh, is that the right one?
I thought it was.
Yeah, because we still had it in.
Yeah, I didn't do anything else. Okay.
Good enough?
No, down.
Down?
For the end. The proper link. Here we go. Hurry up, check back, see if there's somebody there.
Alt tab.
Alt tab. No. Nope. Here's a question: Why are those crossed off the microphone?
They're not. These are our options to mute and to shut off our video. So shut off our video and just talk. Okay, and sometimes when people try to talk at the same time, so when we're done talking, it's
sense.
There's a shortcut to it, Control D, but I can try that and see if it'll work.
No, you do that. Good. You're sitting in the wrong seat. You should be over here. You're the computer literate guy. I'm the computer illiterate guy. I can't even say illiterate. See?
Just because I need to get a tea.
He needs a tea. I'm having a tea. Damn, I am a good-looking man.
Yeah, you kind of look like this.
Kinda. Yeah. I kinda got that look.
This is actually a self-portrait.
Well, it was. Kept looking at myself for reference on it.
See the cracks in there.
Well, yeah, vulcanization. It definitely did its turn on this resin. Surprisingly, that's not why the mold is.
We gotta turn it this way because there's no advertising. Sorry, don't look.
Yeah.
We didn't agree to advertise any products.
I know Kenny is trying to get in here.
I wish I had a cell number.
Let's see.
Where's Kenny? Nothing we can do. Except wait. See if anybody's actually watching. Must be idiots. Like trying to move it there.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize what you were trying to do.
We have one viewer.
Where?
Right
How many viewing?
Somebody's watching us.
Why?
But they're not joining.
Well, why are they not joining?
Maybe they don't want to talk to us. Maybe they just want to watch us.
How boring is that shit?
I don't know.
Am I allowed to say shit?
Yeah.
I don't think we have any kids buying trolls from us.
We're all kicked out.
Yeah.
We made a incorrect post, I guess, for the link. The actual Google Hangout link we reposted to the updates. We posted it back out on Facebook because the link we sent out previously was only the link to view. And so if you want to join, please look for on our Kickstarter under updates or under comments, because we're desperately trying to not talk to ourselves.
It would be good to have other people to talk to. Anybody.
I do have a list of topics, so.
Oh. You want me to read these? No. Well, it's still kind of dumb to talk. Let's give it a few more minutes and see if somebody can figure out how to get in through our crazy maze that we've made here of mistakes. Speaking of crazy mazes of mistakes, we have learned a ton on how to do Kickstarters from this.
Yeah.
The last 2 weeks have been mucho influential.
Which makes me really excited about the future ones that we got planned.
For sure. For sure. We got some really good stuff coming up in the future.
And I have acquired some friends on Twitter.
You have not.
Well, I guess friends is a loose term.
Yeah, they are friends.
At least Janelle's faithful.
Whoever was
faithfully
viewing,
following us.
no, see, they're trying to get in. I can see it. See, viewer, it went to 0 viewers, then it went to a viewer again. Somebody's going to be up there. Check again, see if anybody's commented back. Poor Kenny. I know Kenny is trying to get in.
I know. Yeah, if you are having some difficulties, leave something in the comments. We'll see if we can get this worked out.
Yeah, especially, this is our first time doing this, for sure, so.
Refresh button.
Yeah. Nope. Oh,
I heard somebody.
sound of someone. John Allgood. That is not Kenny, but.
Hello, John. Bye, John.
Okay. I think he wants to talk. He's just trying to figure out how maybe to get in.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that his picture was from Fury Road.
Is it?
Yeah, pretty sure it's one of Immortan Joe's sons. I think that's what that was. I got like a quick look at what.
I wonder if I can post this in chat somehow.
Yeah, that much bigger.
Yeah. Anybody can click on that or not. Maybe only the people that are connected.
So Allgood joined the chat, group chat, Allgood left group chat. So he was actually there.
We have proof. We have evidence of your presence.
We have evidence that somebody looked for a second. Look at these two tossers. that's what happened. It's like, I saw somewhere there was a promise of live new women. Yeah, so I just got done talking with Rob too, and he's burnt out for the day. But which troll do you think he figured that he would paint first?
The big one with the bowler smashing people?
Nope.
Oh, the
Flash.
The action.
Yep.
The dynamic pose.
Yeah. I don't know. I still think I think this is a more dynamic pose, about to be smashed by a big giant
I did have
frickin'
a
rock.
question regarding that. Was he given any ideas what these books were, or just carte blanche?
Are you talking about?
Like
Are you talking about Willie?
No, our idea
Oh,
of the calcification or not.
No, actually, I didn't really. I didn't really talk to them about how to paint it. I just said that they were kind of loosely stone trolls, you know,
Okay.
rocky trolls or whatever, you know, because of Willie not being completely specific on
Whether they're
what curses these trolls actually had put on them.
Right.
It's kind of hard to, you know, say, well, those are actually rocks, which was kind of my original idea. Actually, my original idea was that I really liked Trampy Ace trolls from Wormy, and I like how they had big shoulders and, you know, kind of goofy looking. You know, somebody had made the comment that they looked like old G-Dub trolls, and I'm like, you know what? I'll take that. I take that as a compliment.
You know, I mean, if it could be used as a proxy piece, that would be pretty nice.
I don't know, man. G-Dub trolls were not this big. I don't think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I have no idea.
These guys are pretty big. I think their top end size was around 60 mils, 60, 70 mils, somewhere in there for trolls. But I could be wrong. I don't know how big, like the Kev White ones from Foundry. I don't know how big those actually are because I've never owned one, but I know they're really big. They might be bigger than these. I have no idea.
Yeah.
It's a lot of metal. The difference, I think, is mostly that, like, Kev's sculptures, his original sculpts of his, there's just not as much bulk to the legs and feet as these have. I mean, these have like big, giant, bulky legs and feet, and his were very spindly and thin, which would make them a whole lot easier to cast. You know, probably just a lot less heat. You know, all the various things that make casting large pieces difficult.
So, Tom is here.
Tom knows.
Tom is muted. Let's unmute Tom. Let's unvideo.
His sculpts of his, there's just not as much bulk to the legs and feet that these have. Like big, giant, bulky legs and feet, and his were very spindly and thin, which would make them a whole lot easier to cast. You know, probably just a lot less heat. You know, all the various things that make casting large pieces difficult.
So, Tom is here.
Tom knows.
Tom is muted. Let's unmute Tom. Unvideo.
His sculpts of his, there's just not as much bulk to the legs and feet that these have. Like big, giant, bulky legs and feet, and his were very spindly and thin, which would make them a whole lot easier to cast. You know, probably.
So, I'm not sure if Tom is hearing any of us in real time.
I don't know.
Do you hear what we're saying now, Tom? Right now.
Yep.
Okay.
We can't hear him.
Yeah.
All right. So what?
I wasn't expecting to have microphone on the old camera on, you see.
A little bit of feedback.
Yeah, I wonder why that's doing that. That's bizarre. Maybe Tom knows about how big those Foundry trolls are. Yep.
I can hear you two dudes, but the other dude's a bit hard to hear.
Yeah, I can't. Every time something. And this is so bizarre. When you were talking to Ian, did you have any of this shit? Knows about how big those Foundry trolls are.
Okay, so there we go. We're adjusting his volume a little bit because there's a feedback thing, just a
I
loop.
think I had two windows open going at the same time.
Gotcha. Now you're clear. Now I can hear you.
Yeah, we reduced your volume a little bit. Our stuff is feeding back. So, Tom, you have any questions?
Yeah, just one at the minute. How come you chose a name for them? The basically the Big Bastards name.
How did we come up with the name?
Oh, obviously because they're big. But what did you choose to go with it? You know, for like commercial reasons.
Because I was waiting for Willie Walsh to actually name them, and we wanted to launch the product. Probably not the smartest reason to do that.
I think part of it's because we're fairly inappropriate minded. Our website is named Effin Cool Minis, so along that same lines, you know, not terribly offensive, but at the same point, we wanted to throw a little bit of, yeah, we're inappropriate.
Yeah.
In the future, probably most of what we do will be a lot more serious. Really, like I had said in the post, it was, you know, I have a summer job. We actually, you know, we're just working guys that are doing this to try and get into the business. So we both have summer jobs, and I was at work at my summer job and had started sculpting these trolls. I got the first one done, and I'm like, went to print it out and had scaled it wrong, and it just came out huge. And first thing I thought when I got it, like, man, that is a big bastard. And it just kind of went from there. And you know, I actually hadn't. My mold can, the mold cans that I had up until this point were all for 1-inch molds. So these guys just wouldn't fit. They're too thick. Even there's no way you can lay them into a mold and have them fit. So I'm like, well, it gives me a reason to justify buying a bigger mold can. We've got another huge dragon that's coming our way from Drew Williams, and that should be here any day now. And if I'm going to try and cast it in pewter, I would have needed to have a larger can anyway. So getting the can fabricated is about $400, $450, something like that. So I thought, well, you know, I've got these trolls. I'm going to cast them. If we can make enough to justify the cost of buying the can out of the whole Kickstarter, then it's worth doing it and put some cool minis in people's hands, you know. Which
we definitely wanted to make an attempt at getting this dragon in pewter. However, you know, our sculptor assures us that it's going to be quite a monumental task.
It's big.
How big were you trying to get the trolls to begin with then?
Originally, I was shooting for about 50 millimeters tall, like double human size, which, you know, would make them right around 12 feet theoretically by scale. But I'm still not even sure what I did wrong when I was scaling them. Usually, you know, my workflow with the 3D stuff is a little bit, it's kind of a little bit non-traditional. I use a bunch of different software because there are certain things that one piece of software that'll do better than the next one. And so I'm kind of moving things back and forth. And somewhere in the translation, when I came time to actually scale them up, I think I just probably hit the wrong numbers in. And like I said, it was kind of a happy accident. Because up until that point, I had never considered making something that big because, you know, they're big. What do you do with them? You know, when you beat your opponent at some kind of a war game, I guess you throw it at them or something. You know.
We like the idea that they were as big as they were for the idea of smashing other puny miniatures. That's part of what gave the inspiration for that video that we're still debating. You know, we probably won't do anything like that in the future. Unless we do and throw it to our YouTube channel, but not for a Kickstarter. We got quite a few negatives on that, but quite a few people that were like positive about it, but they still were like, yeah, we can see how, you know, it might offend a few people or just might be obnoxious in general.
Yeah, and put a few people off. But it was quite funny if I remember.
Well, what's funny about it is most of our European people, they got it and thought it was funny. You know, I had a pretty solid sculptor. You know, he's done a lot of work, and he actually lives in Thailand now. And I had seen that he reposted the Kickstarter and had made the comment that it's the best video he's ever seen on Kickstarter, hands down. And one of his English friends said, "Yeah, you know, who knew that Yanks got irony?" You know, and so. Maybe it's a badge of honor that we wear, that we have more European sensibilities of humor, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know.
We definitely got the hate from some people on it, you know. An artist friend of mine was like, that's the most obnoxious thing I've ever seen. The voiceover's dreadful, you know, you need to completely redo the voices. I'm just like, well, you kind of missed the point.
So, yeah, it's intentionally.
By the tongue in cheek, definitely.
So are you mostly just a big hobbyist, Tom, or do you do stuff, you know, like, are you involved in sculpting or anything else?
Just like collecting them, painting them, really.
Right.
Don't do a lot of wargaming, but definitely going to paint them up and put them on the shelf.
Awesome. Yeah, we definitely would like to see your painted products when you're done, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm pretty dreadful at painting, so you know, I had made a couple stabs at them initially when I did the first test castings, and you know, I primed them in black and did a 25-degree white highlighting and all this stuff. And when they got done, I'm like, well, those look like proper shit. So they went into the dip tank and got remelted. So yeah.
It's all practice though, isn't it?
Well, I don't know if it's practice. We've got a guy that is painting a set of them. I'm sure you probably saw the update about that. Really reasonable, and he's a really good painter. His name's Rob Wheeler. So, and the biggest thing is that we did all this on such a short timeline. I literally, I made the first sculpt on a Saturday when I was at work. Sunday morning, I threw it into the printer, went to work, sculpted the next guy while I was at work on Sunday, I think. Came home, printed him that night, woke up in the morning, cleaned up, did that for 3 days straight. And then I talked to Philip and I'm like, I'm going to order a mold can. Why don't we just launch a Kickstarter and just do this? So 2 weeks ago, we sat down and just went, all right, we logged into Kickstarter and went, all right, this is how you do it, I guess, and blah, blah, blah. Well,
and here you are.
Well, yeah, here we are, but clearly it's just been such a great learning process because we made so many mistakes and so many dumb things that we did. And, like it seemed like every day for the first week we were trying to correct something. Like, oh my God, somebody pointed out on day 1 or day 2, hey man, you never even mentioned that these were miniatures in the Kickstarter. I go back and look at them like, well, shit, I thought it was kind of obvious they were miniatures, but I guess I probably should have said that.
Yeah. Hi, Kenny.
Hi, Kenny. Can you hear us, Ken?
Okay. We're not getting any sound from you if you're saying hello. So we'll let Kenny work with his microphone settings, see if he figures that out.
Yeah, if you see, like, this whole Google Hangout thing is also totally new to us, so we
totally
put the wrong...
I've got it as well. That's what I didn't know what to do.
Yeah, we had the same problem.
Yeah.
We literally, Philip tried, we've got a friend that lives in Ireland, and...
he runs D&D campaigns, or well, actually a very variety of campaigns, and he's become very fluent with Google Hangouts. So I had him run me through a few things, but it managed to get us this far, I guess.
Yeah.
If your microphone is white, you're good. If you click on it and it turns red, that means that you're muted. So that's mute. That's good. What else I was going to say?
I don't know.
Oh, to be fair, John's not a terrible painter. Not professional,
Definitely.
but I think in order to take your mind into painting, you obviously have to settle down, breathe properly, and not feel like you have a ton of other things to do. And I think when I came across what John showed me that he first painted, I made a face. I'm sure I did, because it's nothing like I've seen him do before, and I was just like, yeah, that's pretty shit. So we did go, and I had him go back, and he stripped it and went down to the white and black that we went with originally, just to show contour and detours. He threw in a little bit of a wash in there just to fill in the crevices. just to give that idea. Now, I mean, obviously, we're starting out. Our social marketing is quite a bit behind, and we talked with some of the other professionals, and we understand that if we were really doing a strong campaign, we should have done like a blurbs and stuff a month, 2 months and a half, 2 months beforehand.
Leading into it.
Yeah, and it's nice. I mean, we've got out of this mostly what we wanted. We wanted to get into Kickstarter, get our feet wet, because when I saw John at the restaurant and he was like, "Yeah, we were gonna put this out a couple days ago," and he's like, "Why haven't we?" And he's like, "Well, I want to make sure that this is," and I'm like, "You know what? Let's just start it," and that's what we did. And he's like, I'm sure he didn't feel good about it, but because I said that, he clicked go live, and and I've liked the opportunity to engage people and come from that point of view of, look, guys, we don't know what the fuck we're doing. Can you help us out? And everybody helping us out has added quite a bit and enriched this project from my point of view, and it's going to carry over into future projects, which we like.
One of the big points of doing this Kickstarter for us is that we have a couple of other higher profile projects that are tied to intellectual properties that we don't own. So, there's a fantasy one and a sci-fi one that are both on the horizon for us, and we figured that it's just easier to start from scratch, have something, get it funded, deliver it as fast as we can, because it seems like so many of the Kickstarters for miniatures, they get all this money and they never deliver. There's guys here in the States, there's a guy that did a project, and there are people waiting. They're 3 years waiting for the miniatures from this project still, and the guy just doesn't answer them. Every 2 or 3 months he's like, "Oh yeah, your minis are coming." Well, and then they don't show up. And then we had another.
Yeah, you hear all these horror stories, don't you?
Yeah.
So we wanted to make sure that we had the project quite near
90% done.
And that's what he was doing as well. He was trying to make sure absolutely that the project was finished. And I was like, well, I think part of a Kickstarter is that the project isn't completed and you can share the updates of where you're at. So I think we should go live, because I think he wanted to have it done and just be kind of like, hey, look at what we did. I was like, well, really, and it's helped because in the process, he had stumbling blocks where he messed up the molds or whatever. And if he didn't see that there's some kind of financial future for these, I'm pretty convinced that he probably would have scrapped the whole project.
I would have at that point. I'd have been just like, yeah, I'm not going to go back to this because the sellability of these models is, the sellability after this Kickstarter, I hope, is still good. The problem is from our end, they're not terribly profitable because they use a ton of pewter. They're very heavy models, and so if we went just on the pewter weight alone and did like the standard markup that most miniature companies use, these things would be through the roof. And then, shipping on them is going to be a little bit higher. So that's kind of what we had figured with the free shipping. If we can, package them with some very much lighter weight models that don't cost us as much to produce and tie that into shipping, then everybody kind of comes out the winner on the end. We make a little bit more money, get to our funding, plus you guys get more models. More models is always better.
What did you choose pewter over like resin, and why not go like the resin route?
We have a full resin casting facility. We have quite a bit of resin casting equipment. The biggest reason why Kenny's drinking a Miller Lite. So I'm just pounding. We would consider drinking tonight also, but I've been a bit under the weather for the last week, so I just kind of.
And playing guitar at the same time.
Yeah. The biggest thing with the resin is twice the amount of molding. If I had a plan to do them in resin from the start, it might have been different. One of the parts of the process is that when these models, when this model comes out, this is one of the resin prints that comes out of the printer. When it comes out of the printer, it has a bunch of supports on it, and every place where those supports exist, there's a little nub of plastic. And so a lot of times you don't see those until you cast it. So my process so far has been to get them out of the printer, make a first test cast where I cast a master. Well, it's not really a master, but I cast it in metal because the metal is just easier for me to see flaws and imperfections on. This gray resin, if I look at this model in my hand, it looks completely smooth to me. But this is the metal cast that came from it, and I can see all sorts of nubs and nicks and things like that. And so I just file, sand, and clean it up, use green stuff to touch up anything that's really bad, and then I make a final. So if I were doing it in resin, the problem is that Kenny's sound's working now.
Yes.
Okay. If I did them in resin, I would have to make a resin mold, cast it once, pull the resin out, really look at it, and then try and make another resin mold after all the touch-ups have been done. And the biggest problem with that is that resin molds take usually like 2 days to do. You do half of, you pack the model in, you pour half of it, that side cures, you flip it, remove the clay, pour the other side, and then you've got a 2-part mold. And I think it's mostly that I'm just impatient. If I throw these guys into a vulcanized rubber mold, it's done in an hour and a half, 2 hours. Pull it out and
Well,
start gating and venting it.
my particular feeling on that is, like, we've come across that question a few times of why we don't go the resin route. To me, there's something about pewter weight in hand specifically. Now, we know that from a crafting end, there are obviously some shortcomings when it comes to gluing and some detail. However, especially with these particular the size, we wanted the weight because it's just to feel these in your hands, you just kind of feel powerful. You're just like holding this thing and you're like, I am gonna smash something. I mean, you're gonna set these down. I mean, and just that sound alone should terrify your player characters if you're in the role-playing industry. Other than that, like I said, I also kind of feel like resin is a huge market, and at some point, I mean, I understand that pewter's been the market, and that some people might be tired of pewter, but at the same end, I wonder if pewter is going to go the route of being rare in the first place, especially with the advent of resin print. I mean, I kind of have that feeling in the long run that as a business, it's not as easy to take a miniature and print it into metal at home as it is to actually have your own little printer and print it out. If technology goes the route it seems it's going. I hope that wasn't too much information.
I think the answer is normal with metal stuff. Love metal.
In fact, it's kind of effing cool. Okay.
So Kenny, what are you going to do with these when you get them?
What's that?
What are your plans for them other than painting them? Wargaming, role playing? What's Kenny's world? Okay. Okay. I'll speak a little slower. What are you going to do with these when you get them? Are you just going to paint them, or are you looking at them from wargaming or role playing? Excellent, excellent, which is cool. We have a couple of cool licenses coming up, one of which is a Pathfinder-based license. And obviously the adventure with Willie Walsh for this, we've already paid Willie to do the adventure, so that is going to see the light of day anyway. He's writing it. I paid him up front to write the thing, so one way or the other, that will become available to people. And what he's already shared with us is really cool. It looks like it'll be, if you're familiar with his writing, it's it's going to be fun. He does a lot of fun, kind of funny, but not really. Sweet.
Are you familiar with Willie Walsh then? Are you familiar with Willie Walsh at all?
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, for whatever reason, when I got done with these, I looked at them and instantly, Philip and I had kind of came up with the whole backstory ourselves, joking around, and I'm like, I've talked to Willie a little bit. Maybe I could get Willie to write an adventure. These things look just interesting enough that he could probably do something really fun with them. And so, the guy hasn't really written a whole lot in the last few years because, he's like the rest of us. He works for a living, It's very hard to spend your time creating stuff to not really see any financial gain from it, So having him on board was definitely kind of like one of my highlights. I don't know how much Philip really knew about the guy beforehand either. But.
No, I didn't. But when we had our own ideas about a backstory for these guys, and that's where we created the video a little bit. I mean, even though the video was tongue-in-cheek, the background was something similar. We handed that off to Willie, and like where he took his artistic liberty, it's perfectly fine because it was amazing what he came back with. He came back with something that could expand into future adventures and really bring
very
in
sandboxy. It's a very sandboxy kind of adventure where, it's got a little bit of a world, and if once this part of a quest is done, there's enough teaser pieces there that you could go and do a whole bunch more with it. The big thing, in Willie's version of these guys come into a curse that makes them huge. It makes them, giant-sized creatures. Whereas trolls aren't normally, by scale, these trolls are they'd be about 18 to 20 feet tall, which is, if you're a Pathfinder guy, that's pretty large for a troll. So his workaround around it, was to make them cursed. And then just, Philip and I don't play Pathfinder, so he said, well, I'm just going to giant template them and do this and this. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well,
I've been involved in 3.5, so, it's kind of like the precursor to that. Real quick, Kenny, if you can down your mic a little bit, because I think what's happening is we're picking up a little bit of the background from you, and then we wouldn't have to mute you. I think that's why we were coming through garbled before. Just give me a thumbs up when you're good, and we'll give that a try. Because right now, can you turn it down?
Yeah, there's going to be noise.
Yeah. If you have controls over your mic volume, you might be able to lower the sensitivity of that. Yeah. Yep. Otherwise, if you just want to toggle it when you want to say something, just toggle it on. That'll work as well. Especially because we're curious if you have any specific questions that you wanted to throw our way. Just in a second.
Tom, are you just drinking Coke and smoking cigarettes tonight?
Yeah.
Is that? It's almost 3 in the morning. Where you're at? Where are you at, Tom?
UK.
Oh, okay, you're in the UK.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the UK very well as far as like where places are at. One of our sculptors is in Middleborough. So.
I'm in the east part of the UK.
Huh?
I'm on the east in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a place called Norwich. That's like probably the biggest city near us.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll look.
That's all farmlands, really.
Yeah.
Kind of like where we're at. we're kind of in between Cleveland and Toledo in Ohio, which is kind of like nowhere.
No.
Well, I don't know either. We do have a beautiful lake. So.
Yeah, we're on the lake, and it's fresh water. So we get a lot of people that in the winter they go to Florida and Key West, and in the summer they come up here because they like the fresh water. You had some food, English food you made recently. What was that?
Parmo. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What was that?
What did you make?
I made Parmo.
Never heard of that one.
No?
No. It was Mark, the sculptor, was like, oh yeah, it's bechamel and breaded chicken and served with French fries and cheddar cheese melted. And I'm like, that is a heart attack. I must try it. So it was good. It was pretty good. Do we have Peter? Peter is trying to get in here.
Yeah, I see Peter's connected, but
I think Peter pledged last night, I think, or 2 nights ago.
was he our 100th like on Facebook and our 1,000th?
I can't remember if that was Peter or not.
I think so.
I think so. Well, Peter, if you can hear us, how you doing, mate?
Let me check that real quick. Go back. Peter! 100th like and 1,000. He broke our 1,000 for us.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
That was an awesome. This last week has been really cool. And I'm not trying to be the Debbie Downer, but on Monday I was like, I just don't think this is gonna fund, man.
Yeah.
We're like at $500.
I'm just telling you, the amount of research we've been doing since we started this thing. I'm like, okay, what's the percentage of failure? What's going to happen here? And I was like, okay, well, we've got 1/3 of the way, so technically, according to this graph, we're 80% chance we're going to fund. And then I was like, 5 days later, I'm like, dude, we're not going to fund. This has not changed. This number is still there.
It's still like at 500 or something, but yeah.
And it's like, well, something's got to change. Obviously, we have a low number of backers, and you guys have been great to contribute as much as you have. And it's all part of that pre-campaign issue where we didn't get the word out enough that we were going to be doing this Kickstarter. Like, we just hit Kickstarter go. This is what you do.
I think Tom was our first backer. Weren't you, Tom?
Might be. Don't know about checking.
Yeah, I think you were number one.
I think he was. I think he definitely was.
Because I was so happy. I woke up. We hit launch on a Sunday at 10 o'clock our time, 11 o'clock our time, and I just like, all right, I'm beat. I'm going to bed, and I'll check this in the morning. And I came back the next day, and I'm like, yay, we have backers! Wow, this is great. And then, it was cool for a while, and then it kind of seemed like it stalled out. But really, this week, just very happy with this week.
Yeah.
We're at the point where this will fund. It's definitely going to fund. We still have 13. We're just a little over halfway through it, and we've almost hit the number. So
Right.
I think at this point we can safely say that it's funding.
Right.
So you guys are going to have your minis, and
And we're currently working on a little bit of that bits add-on. See if we have enough time to get something that John was busy sculpting away today on that campfire. He wanted to get something for you, but to his frustration, and the printer just didn't seem to want to cooperate tonight. But I would probably look for some of those updates soon. See what you think of that direction. I was also looking for other forums. I don't know if you all are part of certain communities that we should be involved in, as far as, say, even our future Kickstarters, when we should be advertising that things are going to be going on. If at any point you post in our comments to let us know where we should be going. So far, we did go to Reaper Minis forums. I noticed that somebody there had latched onto us early. I was like, oh, wow, Effin Cool Minis. It's on Reaper, and
Good one to be on.
what's
That
that?
seems to be a good one to be on.
Yeah. I had a account at the miniatures page, and like probably a year and a half ago, but I just never posted anything there, and I had kind of forgotten all about it, and so I re-upped my membership there because they had canceled me because I just had no activity for so long. So I re-upped it today, so we'll probably be posting some stuff there. They have a 3-day waiting period before you can post anything, so if either of you guys are members at TMP, if you want to throw something up there, that would help, because I just don't think those guys are aware of what we're doing, and you know, to be honest, neither Philip nor I are really, we're not really hardcore war gamers. We're not really hardcore role players anymore. We're just kind of, we have a game store. We're actually in our game store right now. That's why we set it for 9 o'clock our time, because it's kind of after hours. Everything kind of dies out on Thursdays at 9. So
We're in between all that.
yeah, we just kind of
We have some of it. We just at this particular point, I think in our lives, that it was something I read when we decided we were going to open up a gaming location. It said that in order to be successful, you have to be interested in games, but not that interested in games to the point that you are only playing games. So, you know, we put a bit of our business hats on and tried to see what we could do to keep a game store going. And at a certain point, we started with the Wizards of the Coast, Magic the Gathering format, a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh! And fortunately, there was this guy that came in and a couple times insisting on Warhammer. And we were like, okay, sure. If you want to host an event and teach people how to play Warhammer, like it's this big, thick book, you know. I think that's always the big setback for something like that. But that was our introduction into miniatures, and then we're like, this is pretty neat.
Yeah, I mean, I have a huge collection of minis from when I was a lot younger. You know, like we're all grown men. I'm 43, and you know, I kind of stopped playing role-playing games seriously when I was about 17 or 18, and then I came back to it like just before third edition of Dungeons and Dragons came out. I played for like probably 4 or 5 years, and then I just got busy doing so many other things that trying to get a gaming group together seemed like it was impossible. Getting 2 guys that wanted to play a role-playing game in a room.
Right. Well, part of that's our area. People consistently move away and move back from this area in order to make a living. And so you got your favorite game master that goes and marries some girl in Ireland, and you know, and now
your game's done.
You're gone, done, yeah. And then you got all these other people that here specifically that'll start a game, but it only goes 3 sessions, and they're just like, you know, why am I bothering with this?
They're too interesting.
I get too invested in my characters, and I'm like, I wanna see this character succeed, and then they're like, yeah, we're on to the next campaign. Well, I do love creating characters, I really do, because I like to see the idea and the potential. But so gaming is one of those things that we try to balance so that we can actually make something as well. I look forward to the idea that, you know, we'll make enough money that we'll just basically be gaming for a long time.
That's what honestly, I own a restaurant. That's the day job, and it's completely seasonal. So I'm only open for 5 months out of the year at the restaurant, and then the other 7 months I've been doing this. You know, we're doing this for almost a year now, and so it. My goal would be just to get out of the restaurant business entirely and sit around and make miniatures and play games all day. Sounds like a pretty peach of a life. But
in the process, though, we've met some really cool people.
for sure.
Are we allowed to name people?
Oh, I'd imagine. I mean, I don't think it really matters. We just met, you know, people that you might know and might not know, but, you know, Wolfgang Bauer, you know, I'm sure Kenny knows who Wolfgang Bauer is if he's the Pathfinder guy. You know, the Midgard campaign is pretty huge. Jim Ward, Metamorphosis Alpha and Gamma World. So that's actually our next project that's slated. We have a contract with Jim Ward to do Metamorphosis Alpha miniatures, which has actually never been produced. So,
so it's going to be a line of science fiction. Always looking for neat ideas there. We've happened to get this artist that's amazing at like just handing out ideas and sketches, inexpensive but quick, and he just helped us get these ideas for sculpts. You'll be seeing some of those posted on our website soon, just because, like you said, we need to be doing these pre-advertisements, so we're going to try to ramp up for its next month.
Shooting for next month, you know, not shooting for November. I still have to make a trip out to meet with Jim after I get some more of the sculpts done and get his final approval on designs and sizes and things like that. But, you know, barring any major catastrophes on that end, that should be November.
Yeah.
And, you know, I guess it doesn't really matter. The cat's enough out of the bag anyway, but we're actually taking over the Midgard miniatures line. So, you know, they kind of have, there's a Kickstarter out there. They're pretty far behind on delivery, and it's, you know, it's just kind of a sticky situation, and we're going to step in and basically try and reboot the entire line and do what we can to make things right with the people that have backed that line. Should that one never actually deliver rewards, you know, we'll have to figure out something for those guys, because it was backed for a pretty decent number, and, you know, 3 years ago, and just still no delivery on it. It's kind of hard because the guy that did the Kickstarter is a really good dude. He just kind of fell on hard times, and, you know, maybe just didn't plan his Kickstarter as well as he should have in terms of the delivery. But that's also part of the reason why, you know, we decided that we're just not going to launch Kickstarters unless we have 90% or better of product in game ready to go. Because, you know, we've watched a bunch of these things where they have this kind of vague idea of what they're doing, they launch it, and as things are coming in, they're getting pictures, and, you know, most of the sculptors, they're really talented, but they're just constantly bombarded with work. And so when they run into a stumbling block on one of your pieces, put it aside and get 5 other things done because they got to keep eating. They're like, oh, this, you know, this piece is breaking my ass, so I'm going to put it aside for a minute because I got to do these, and I can do these in the next 2 weeks. And it just seems like, you know, with miniatures, it seems like the schedule is very easy to keep falling further and further behind on. And once you start falling down that slope, there's no recovery. The Midgard project in particular, they're still waiting on some of the sculpts. That's part of the problem, but, you know.
So, question, Tom, are there, being coming from a person who specifically collects miniatures and paints, is there anything about our particular Kickstarter that was more appealing than other things out there? Anything that we actually did right, I guess, is the question.
It was more the trials of the miniatures I see on there. You know, the trials I see them, and I thought they've got loads of characteristics to them, and like I say, they'll go nice just sitting on the shelf. So I thought, oh, that's it, I'll back that. You know.
That's cool. I see you do back quite a bit of things too, so that actually is that's good that it stood out enough for you to go, yeah, this is something that would look good.
Yeah, they've sort of got an old flavour to them, if you know what I mean. They've got an old look to them. Like everything today is all snarly, big, and, you know, mean looking, where they're sort of got character to them. Like there's really big and everything.
Well, there was I don't know, did you back the Atlantis Rising miniatures line? Did you back that?
I had a look at it. There's some big stuff on there.
There's some huge stuff in there. 120 millimeters, 140 millimeters. And that's some really big stuff, but I think it's all in resin, which is, I mean, that's great. There's no way you can do pieces that big in pewter effectively. But, you know, one of the things that I looked at is that all of their trolls are cool, but they just have almost that Lord of the Rings look. Whereas, you know, when I look
A lot of them are like that nowadays, aren't they? Like Lord of the Rings.
right, I think that's kind of what I was getting at is that, you know, my inspiration on these in terms of what I like comes from like old role-playing stuff. It was, you know, it was really literally, I had downloaded a bunch of pictures of the Wormy comic strip from Dragon Magazine, and before I actually had started sculpting the first one of these guys, I had made an attempt at trying to create something that looked exactly like one of those trolls, and it was terrible. I was like, oh, this is dumb, you know? And I had scrapped it completely, threw it away, and then just went, well, I'm going to go with what I feel like doing, and I think this looks good, and started pulling, you know, working with the digital stuff is kind of weird. It's very easy to get caught up in what the programs can technically do. You know, there's stuff that these programs can do that's just absolutely amazing. You know, super sharp, crisp, everything crisp, and just, you know, insane detail. But the final output, to me, almost looks too sterile. In some cases, it doesn't have enough of a life to it. And so what I've been doing, you know, I'm not a traditional sculptor really. I'm actually pretty terrible with green stuff and like the traditional sculpting methods. I'm not very good with it. But I have watched tons and tons of videos, tons of tutorials over the, you know, the last bit, and just kind of have tried to make my workflow a lot like what it would be if I were actually working with green stuff or other kinds of modeling clay. And I've done that enough so that I've actually deluded myself into thinking that I am a sculptor and can use that stuff. But I pick up the tools and I'll start working on something. I'm like, God, you're terrible at this. Just go back to the computer. It's just better that way.
Without the undo function.
The undo function is my friend. You know, in the digital thing, if you do something that looks bad, you just Control-Z, 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 and it just backs it up until you get back to the point where, oh, that's...
It's a lot of tenacity. That is why I posted that bit about, you know, us being like the trolls. You know, my friend here, he smashes his thumb very often, and I will hear him smash other things in response, but he just keeps going. He's very much a doer, which has enabled us. That's why when I told him, yeah, let's just do that, I was pretty sure that he would click publish because that's his personality. He is the doer. I'm usually the one that's like, oh, I don't know, let's check out all these numbers, let's check out all this. And, you know, I mean...
No, he's the smart businessman, and I'm the idiot, but which is true. I tend to just push into things.
My experience is that I've come across other people. I mean, it does lend to a bit of chaos. Just doing stuff lends to a bit of chaos. I've met other people like that. But, you know, those people that I've met are the people that actually are getting something done. Whereas, you know, I look back on my time and I was like, you know, I think I just analyzed things to the point where it's just a dead idea. And I like that, you know, I followed his example and just said, let's just do this because, you know, well, we get to talk with you guys and we get to start to build an actual reputation. And, you know, it's pretty exciting, honestly.
Even though we have been a company as Effin Cool Minis for over a year now. It's been over a year, but like it's just sort of been.
Well, that was the end of the season, and then we went into our busy time where we had to make sure our bills were paid.
But you know, for the last year, it's mostly just been me listing things on eBay and sort of using eBay as an advertising platform for the website. So I'll put things up on eBay, and guys will look at those and be like, oh, I wonder what else they have. So then they go to the website, and they'll order other things that aren't on eBay from the website. Right now, our model lines are pretty small. We don't have a whole lot of models made, but that's mostly because I spent a lot of last winter really working the kinks out of how to use the 3D printer properly, how to sculpt more 3D because it's, you know, I have a lot of 3D background for modeling, but you can't put every single thing that you make, it doesn't just go into the printer and come out as a piece, as I learned. Because I tried to send things, I had to like learn how the machine actually, how the software and the machine actually looks at or at the piece that you designed. If there's a tiny hole in the mesh of that figure, it looks at it as a big hollow thing, and it pretty much won't print it. It'll try to print it, it'll say it's printing it, but when it comes out, you get a big blob of plastic. So that was a bunch of frustrated prints, pulling things out, like, what am I doing wrong? I'm just, I can't be this stupid. This seems easy. Just design something, press print. It doesn't really work that way.
Yet.
Not yet.
I have faith that technology will overcome that, and we'll have some amazing things printed out in the future.
Yeah, I still like.
He doesn't believe it.
I don't believe it. I still like pewter better anyway. Yeah. I'm trying to think of anything else. So what about you, Tom? What else? You got any other questions?
You mentioned about you got these new cans for, was it a dragon or something in the future?
Yes, it's a dragon.
Can you say anything about that?
You know what?
There's not that many viewers. I think we could probably.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about that for sure. And it's kind of weird because it makes it almost seem like we're vultures to me, but.
No, I think we're vultures of goodwill.
Well, so there was another Kickstarter done in Cleveland by a company called Center Stage Miniatures. And actually, they did a series of 3 Kickstarters, and the funding level was pretty huge. Over the 3, they hit like $290,000. Okay, and before the first one was completely delivered, the guy that owned the company launched a second one. And then before the first one was delivered and half of the second one was delivered, he launched the third one, got all that money, and basically just got himself over his head. I don't want to, I don't know what he did with the money. I don't know the guy personally, but some way or another, people just didn't end up with what they were supposed to. Well, the first Kickstarter that he had done was this Demons and Devils project, and it was one of the big stretch goals on that was this big giant, it's basically a Tiamat knockoff. It's a 10-inch tall dragon with 5 heads, and it's just a big chunk of a model. And in the process, we had looked at, well, I personally did, Philip was kind of against it, but I was looking, the company went bankrupt. They filed bankruptcy. So I had looked into, well, what would it take to acquire their molds and then make it good with all the people that back this, as good as we can get it, and then we would still have those lines to be able to sell through our company. Well, in monkeying around with looking at that, I had come across the dragon, and I was like, wow, this thing is so cool. The sculpt is already done. Like, wow, how has this thing not actually been produced? And which led me to Janelle Jakeways, who pretty famous fantasy artist, pretty good writer. I just started messaging Janelle about the dragon. I said, well, whatever became of the dragon? She said, well, I'm not sure, but I know Drew Williams sculpted it, so why don't you talk to Drew? I contacted Drew and said, well, Drew, whatever happened to the dragon? He said, well, as far as I know, it's sitting in a box in Cleveland. It's never been cast. It's just still sitting there. So, like a couple days had passed, and Janelle, I believe it was Janelle that actually suggested it. Maybe I suggested it, maybe she suggested it, but I'm like, well, what would it take to get licensing to be able to release that dragon? And Janelle's like, Janelle named her terms, which I thought were very agreeable. She's been super good, like super goodwill ambassador for us. What it took was contacting Drew and saying, okay, Drew, what's it going to take for you to resculpt this dragon? Since we have no access to the one in Cleveland will probably never see the light of day. It's a complete shame. This thing was a gorgeous sculpt. It's really awesome looking. But short of that, what's it going to take for you to resculpt this thing? And surprisingly, he was like, I'd love a chance to resculpt it because there's things I did wrong in the first one. There's things that I'd love to redo and so and so. So, you know, we pooled our resources. We said, let's just buy a dragon. You know,
I was against it. And then he showed it to me, and then I was like, okay.
That's a cool dragon.
That's something, and it became to the point where it's not really something I necessarily want to sell. It's something I want to have, you know. And for me, you know, I mean, I'm not our target market. I'm not the person that goes out and has a shelf of miniatures. While I love miniatures, I don't necessarily go out and spend my resources on miniatures. But this one particular, I was just like, wow, yeah, that's definitely like a centerpiece type thing. And it is definitely going to start off in resin. Whether there's a possibility of getting it into pewter, we want to try it, but we're doubtful. And our sculptor, like I said, is doubtful that it would make it. Is that just the size of it, the wings, the heads?
The bigger problem is that when you're casting pewter, I don't know if either one of you guys have any experience with casting anything, but the heat, when you're doing large pieces, the heat buildup in the mold. So, you know, you're pouring this into a mold, and, you know, it's molten pewter, and the bigger the piece, the hotter the mold ends up getting. You know, it just gets super hot. Well, the molds are really durable when they're cool. But as they get hotter, they get more elastic, and you run the risk of pulling pieces out of the mold. Like chunks of the mold will rip out, and then you get deformations in the casting. So one of the things that Drew had said is he's like, well, you know, he had worked for Citadel. He had worked for them casting miniatures, and he said, you know, the big dragon from Citadel was like, you know, when the Dreadnoughts came out, you know, he was part of casting those. He's like, yeah, those blue molds left and right. He's like, we had to constantly inspect the mold because it's so much pewter going into that mold, it's so much heat. You just, you know, as you're pulling the pieces out, you're ripping chunks of rubber with it, and then the next time you go to cast it, it just doesn't look right. So that's one of the reasons why it might not see pewter. It might see an extremely limited run in pewter because the molds are expensive to make. You know.
So personally, Tom, you are. How do you feel about pewter versus resin?
Resin holds the detail quite nice, but like I say, it's got a good feel to it.
Yeah. Yep. That is the big trade-offs. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, but I suppose in the long run, you have to look at like how many times are you picking it up. That's why I think with these, I think we had a little bit more of that role-playing aspect in mind when we decided to make sure that they were big and heavy, because you know, putting them on a shelf, it doesn't really matter if it's pewter or, you know, at that point you would prefer resin, wouldn't you?
With the characters on that, it doesn't really matter too much, if you know what I mean. They've got the characters for the metal, so you know, I'm quite happy with them in metal.
Well, good. That means that we made the right decision. Or at least I think we did. You know.
Yeah.
Time will tell.
Yeah.
Maybe at some point in the future, I don't know. I think for the most part, this is going to be a limited project that'll see this Kickstarter and maybe a few sales afterwards. But I think we're mostly going to be focusing on onward and upward. That's why it'd be nice to get a lot of people on this Kickstarter currently, because from the point of view of trying to, you know, get one order of one troll, it'd be like, oh my gosh, now I got to spend this one troll that's going to take me an hour to put together, whereas I could spend an hour putting together 50 little miniatures. That's what we're looking at. So I think that these are going to be good in the long run. It looks like they're going to be fairly exclusive, because we'll probably put them on our website for a couple months and then we'll probably watch the no sales that happen.
Yeah, if they don't sell, then I've got molds sitting there and it's not a big deal. But if people actually start buying them, these also will start having problems. You know, the master mold for Flash actually, when I did about 10 casts of him in the master mold, and I already ripped a chunk out on the nose. On about the 10th cast, a chunk of the rubber came out with his nose. But the molds that I use for master molding are not as durable as the production molds, but they're also like 4 times as expensive. So, you know, each one of these screwed up molds I made was $100. I made one. Well, I made one as a test of the original prints of these that cost $100. Only to discover that, you know, the size difference. Well, so I'm going to pull them up real quick. When they came out in resin, I liked them, but I didn't really notice scale-wise how much smaller. Yeah, like if you look, Clump, the guy with the rock over his head, is just lots smaller. You know, and this is the original print. This is the first one that came out of the printer. But I cast it anyway because I wanted to see whether or not it was going to work. So now, this is actually the model, and the rock and the 2 hands are separate. It's the only way he'll fit in the mold, because with the rock over his head.
And this was the one that was originally in that video.
Yeah, so this is the one that was in the video smashing the miniature, which was my big hand. I don't know if you can tell it's my big hand that did that, but if you know, rock over his head, he's just a lot larger. Yeah, but you're holding your guy way high.
Well, he's bigger as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a lot bigger. So much that I had to, like, when I reprinted him, I had to take his hands off. And after I cast these, when I did the first test casting, the first test mold of them, I realized that it was really, really hard to get, because of the way they're designed, with the arms really close to the body and not actually connected in any way to the body, that trying to cut runners to each hand was difficult, because the mold is only so big around, and they had to be laid in the mold diagonally, which made each one of their right arms almost impossible to get metal to easily. And it's just, I hadn't thought of that when I designed it. It was not in my thought process when I designed it in the first place. You know, if you've got a standard model that'll fit in a mold the way it should, cut a runner up to one piece, cut a runner to the base, cut a runner to the other hand, and it just fills fine. But these guys being diagonal in the mold, you know, never occurred to me. So I'm like, well, we're going to have to remove the arms from them. So when I removed the arms and cast them. I made a mold of them with the arms removed. And my clamps, the clamps that hold the mold shut, actually, I had used, I had to go buy new clamps for this mold because it's, I bought a 3-inch mold can, so the clamps that are on there are 5-inch C clamps to clamp it shut. Well, while it was vulcanizing, one side of that, the clamps had shattered on. I didn't realize it. Like when I took them out, I'm like, oh, well, they broke. It didn't register that that would be too much of a problem until I started pouring casts of them. And I realized that there was a real big shift in the mold. So it was a really, really horrible, noticeable mold seam on 2 of the minis from that one. So that went to, okay, I guess I have to print these all out again and make another mold. So right now I'm at 300 in molds on these guys.
Yeah,
and
which was not the intention.
That was not the intention. So
right. We could also talk about how this was your first one and how he was more difficult to cast.
Yeah. So this guy was actually the first one that I designed. And I designed him, I posed him just in a way, because it was a trial. I just kind of was monkeying around with making a troll. I actually really didn't design him with the intention of casting him. So I just posed him in a way that I thought would look cool. Like, oh, he looks kind of cool like this. And then when it became a reality that we were going to actually make these into miniatures, I put it together, put it in the mold, and immediately I'm like, oh my god, this thing is going to be a nightmare to get to cast because of how his head is faced. He's got one ear that goes up and one that kind of is sagging down under the weight of like 2 or 3 earrings. I don't know if you probably can't see it in the resin, but he's got like 2 big earrings. You see how he's got like one ear up like a dog and one down? So, like, when you do that, you have to find a plane, when you're setting it in a 2-part mold, you have to find a plane where pieces aren't going to get stuck one way in the mold. And so, like, I had to basically gouge the mold to where the seam is under this ear. Because if not, if the mold line was any higher, that ear would get stuck in the mold. So, just, one of those things where he's probably the neatest in my opinion. Like, I like him the best, maybe because he was the first, but also because of the goofiness. The ear thing gives him a little bit more character, even though that was not, it wasn't by design that he looks better. It was, just sort of me not thinking about how I was going to reproduce him.
Right. Just being like an actual artist and getting lucky enough that a dynamic sculpt could be actually cast with some difficulty, because a lot of things that you see out there that are modeled 3D, you just have to separate so many pieces to try to get an actual cast out of that.
Yeah.
We were lucky to get away with 2, and I had said, do you think you want to take the heads off of these? And he was like, nope. But I think later he was like, I think he probably should have on this one particular, but I think it's nice that it is seamless, that you don't have to glue on a head, which can sometimes be obnoxious. I mean, I'm sure arms can be a little bit difficult at some points too.
These arms will definitely have to be pinned in, unless you've got some amazing glue that I don't know of that is really good. The arms themselves weigh, they're pretty hefty. So getting them to go in there, they're socketed. There's, a ball and a socket on the miniature, but our painter, he already has pinned one of them together, and he said, man, he had to really use some heavy wire and pin them together nice. But, I think glue would hold it if you're not going to be handling it a whole lot. But, like you had said, Tom, if it's on your shelf, maybe not such a problem. I don't know, but you sound like you've done enough with this stuff that, pinning that together shouldn't be too big of a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Kenny? Do you have a whole lot of experience with like pinning pewter models together or anything? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. And these are produced in a way. They'll be produced in a way that that they will kind of slot together. But when you start gluing them together, when you're dealing with heavyweight things, resin, certain glues will actually melt resin, and make it real easy to assemble. You probably have to put glue on and hold them. But maybe not. I don't know. I glued up a set of them, and I didn't pin them, and I didn't have a problem with them. But I'm also not handling them on a regular basis like that. So.
And we don't have the production mold finished yet. We should be working on that pretty soon. These are the masters that will be cleaned up, and then these will in fact be put into a production mold after they're finished.
Yeah, and the cleanup is just finding any little nicks and knobs and things that have to be sanded off. All the mold lines, because every miniature's got a mold line on it. It doesn't. I don't care what it's made out of. They've all got them. So all the mold lines will have to be cleaned up a little bit, and then they'll go into a production. By that point, they should fit together pretty nicely and should have no problems with it. The nice thing is that the arm seams fall exactly where the rocky stuff ends. So, when you actually hold the arm up there, there's a seam there, but it fits nice enough that it just looks natural. So even if you don't use green stuff or any other kind of putty to fill it in, it's probably going to look okay for the average guy. But, and the wrists are seamed on this mini. If you look, he's got some armbands around this arm, and then on the arm that is on the rock, he's got armbands. And the way that fits together is right there. So, all in all, you'd be hard pressed to find the seams on these even with just glue and no other putty work. I think it'd be just completely fine.
Some other comments that we saw out there regarding the miniatures themselves was the idea that there was a lack of detail versus some feedback that it's just enough detail. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that from what you've seen, Tom.
Well, Tom said he liked the idea that they look like the old sculpts and that they have a lot of character to them. That is an issue. It's always a question.
Well, I mean, I think that you see a lot of detail coming out of miniatures now, and one of the things that I had the thought of is if you fill a miniature with so much detail that it doesn't leave any room for a painter to actually put any interpretation of their own onto it, at that point you're stuck. That is specifically a guy that is all scarred up, or that is specifically a guy with this tattoo. Whereas, I don't know what your thoughts as a collector are on that type of thing. Detail versus no detail, or not no detail, but
what you're probably trying to ask him is how much do you like to have input on the final product? Do you like a model that has tons of detail where you're just constantly picking out little pieces of detail to paint, or do you like to be able to interpret your own stuff on it, like give it,
You see, I like having hand sculpted, and without all the detail on it, but just enough detail to give it all the characteristics and everything. But then on the other hand, I like, say Forge World, they do some really nice detailed models, probably some of the best out there. And, I enjoy that just as much. It's all down to the individual miniature you're looking at, really, and what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And with yours, that ticks sort of all the boxes for like the old school looking, quite nice characteristics, and lots of charm about them, rather than just your bog standard mountain troll looking type thing from Lord of the Rings or Hobbit or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah, and the storyline that goes with them will give them a lot of character if we get to that point. It seems that at this point we're skeptical that will fund, but like he said, we had purchased that already from Willie, and at some point we'll be putting that to our website as an e-publication if it doesn't get to that stretch goal. Do you have any comments on that? Like what it'll take to get that to our website?
In all honesty, it'll depend on what Willie hands me and how much more has to be done. I know that, he's handed me a preliminary map of part of the adventure, okay, and so it's a good map. If you were to sit down with your role-playing group, you could use this map, but I would probably have to pay a cartographer to actually make a proper map for it. And so, whatever he hands me, we're going to have to look at and see what it takes to knock it into a good publication form. And if it's if it's too costly, then then the price has to somehow be justified in the production or in the sale of it.
Mm-hmm.
But
so I suppose at some point we've considered it being its own Kickstarter.
Yeah.
But we're not sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure not. I was originally, I think I was the one that was like, well, if we don't hit that 3,000, we still have the adventure. We'll do a Kickstarter for that too. But now I'm kind of like, let's just make more miniatures. Miniatures are what we do, or what we're trying to do. I'd love to produce adventures, miniatures, possibly even publish games and all kinds of stuff because we're lifelong.
Well, we do have a game that we're working on publishing. It's in its I don't know, beta stages, I guess is what you call it. I actually need to go and get an actual board. Look, it's on our website. It's a free download, but that's not really how I want to distribute it. I think we're gonna go to one of those board game sites and actually have it so that it's purchasable. But what that started off with is I don't know if you've seen that we have those Ninja Schoolgirls on our website. I don't know how much you're familiar with that. But John came to me and he's like, you know what sell miniatures? Games sell miniatures. Why don't you make a game that will sell these miniatures?
Yeah, because I made the miniatures. Why don't you make a game so that people will buy the miniatures I made?
So I tried to make something up that was simple. Since we have a game store, we have an abundance of good opinions, people that have played games. So it's run through a few test phases, and so you can look to see if that's coming up or if that's interesting to you as a board game player. But it's a minor attempt. We do have a few other ideas that we've worked on in the background for other games. It's definitely a direction we want to go, but right now we're focusing on the miniatures.
We've been friends for a long time, so we've got all sorts of plans that we've hatched in the 11, 12 years that we've been friends. We've, all of them involve us conquering the world in one form or another. So,
yeah, a bridge from Port Clinton to the islands that exist out in the lake here. All grand dreams. I don't know if you have any other questions. I mean, we're looking at 10:30 here. We could wrap it up if anybody wants to get to sleep.
It's late for comments.
No, I'm sort of pretty out of questions at the minute. I'm sort of all good. You know what I mean?
Okay. Do you got anything more, Kenny?
All right, great. Well, I'll look forward to seeing you guys in the comments, and we'll see. I mean, this video is going to look like a total botch thing, and if people will try to watch it from the beginning with us being like, "Whoa, nobody's here, nobody can connect."
Yeah.
But I'm sure. I think we figured this one out for the next time.
I definitely would like to do another one before the project is over. If we can get even more people. I guess it didn't really dawn on me the whole idea that we actually have quite a few people in Europe. There's like 3 or 4 guys in the UK. There's somebody in Denmark, I think. We've got somebody in Australia that pledged, and so I wasn't really thinking about, well, at 9 o'clock our time, 10 o'clock our time, that should be fine, the store's closed or whatever. I happened to see Tom's comment, and I thought, well, that probably means Tom won't be there. And then he's here, and I'm looking at the clock, and I'm like, dear God, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning over there. He's got to be tired. Stay up
Getting that way.
Hmm?
Getting that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely enjoyed meeting you guys.
Yeah, for sure. It's always good to actually meet people that are willing to give you money. And even better that you are giving us money for sure, because definitely the project doesn't work unless people give money.
Yeah. And like I said, once it goes to the website, you won't be able to get those kinds of prices. So
yeah, these average at 13. Just not that you guys need to know the finances of any of this, but they average. If you buy the 3 of the trolls at $39, that's $13 a piece. In weight in metal on this guy alone, I got like $7.50. So, it's not really very profitable to deal with him, but that wasn't the point of us doing this Kickstarter in the first place. It was more definitely to learn the process of what to do, what not to do, how to structure things,
So good businessman, probably not, but we're more the types that we see something that's kind of cool and we want to influence the world in some way. I think that's more like, especially like with that dragon that we discussed. It's not something that's going to be profitable. We're sure of that, but we're like, it would be really cool to be the people that actually helped out and got that kind of a.
Yeah, I guess I didn't really get to the point on that. There were a bunch of people that had pledged to get this dragon, and so what we're going to do is all the guys that had pledged to get this dragon on this other Kickstarter, we're going to offer it to them at our cost for materials on it. So that was sort of like our kind of goodwill gesture to try and rectify any goofiness about the dragon. So, and then, of course, it also allows us to kind of sell the dragon on our website if people have the money to shell out for it, because it's a big dragon. It's not as big as the one that Reaper's putting out for the Bones 3 campaign. That thing's unbelievably huge, but it's still really big.
Right.
All right, gentlemen.
All right.
Call it a night. I think we're done.
All right. Good night.
All right, guys.
See you on the web.
See you later.